are, and we've seen 4 polls in the course of 2 weeks that show that this is dead even. Quinnipiac just came out that said it is tied. People are ready and they're hungry for change, and they are tired of the same old, same old. And Lindsey Graham is that same old, that warmed over stuff that people are just tired of. Someone who will just come around during the election season and come and show up and visit here and there, but all of the 5 years prior doesn't do anything to address the issues that people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And what's amplified this, Mark, is that the coronavirus has really amplified and the size of the issues that people are dealing with here in the state. And Lindsey, in being in Washington, D.C. for well over 25 years, he more is interested in playing the Washington political games than being home and dealing with the issues that folks are having to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Speaking of the coronavirus, what are South Carolina's numbers these days?
Well, they're not good. We've had over 94,000 confirmed cases here, 1,800 deaths. And when you look at the deaths and look at the numbers, a disproportionate number of those deaths are African American. And it's just sad. And we're one of the last states. Our governor still has not called for a statewide mask mandate. And in just a few weeks, our schools will be opening again. And so there are a lot of folks who are on pins and needles just looking for some real leadership to give us a path forward in terms of how to deal with this, how to save our economy, how to keep our families safe.
How have you been campaigning? Mostly virtually or what? And phone banking too, I take it.
Yes, we've been phone banking, texting, virtual, marketing, because we've been our fundraising has been robust enough. We've been up on TV since the first part of April. We've been up on Black radio since the first part of April. We've been in Black newspapers since the first part of April. And so we've been able to do the things that we've always wanted and knew that we needed to do, and do it early enough to really be making a difference right now. And part of what I'm trying to do, I'm trying not to run the same old political TV ads, Mark, because I understand that what I have to do is, many folks when they vote, some candidates get caught up in, well, I need to know all of the issues and I have to have all of these detailed plans, and all of that is important. But I know that, Joe and Sue, who are in the neighborhood, that they are going to they're going to vote not just based on what the good policy is, but based on what they feel right here in their hearts and in their guts. And so I'm trying to make sure that our messages resonate not only here, but here and here as well. And I think that, along with our Harrison Helps initiative that we have, which is in essence my service program on the ground, working with community organizations to help people deal with problems they're dealing with right now. I think a culmination of those things really are making a difference, despite the fact that we can't go to the spaghetti dinners and the barbecues and the fish fries.
Right. And in terms of reaching the head and the heart, Jaime, what are the main issues for South Carolinians these days? I mean, Lindsey alone is an issue because of his inaction and incompetency over the years. Aside from him, what are some of the things, or this popular term now, the cliche of kitchen table? What are South Carolinians in particular talking about at the kitchen table these days?
Well, healthcare remains a top issue in our state. We are one of only 12 states now, since Missouri has just passed an initiative to expand Medicaid. We're one of 12 states that have not expanded Medicaid. And as a result, billions of dollars have not come to our state. Well, we would have had 44,000 new jobs, but more importantly, we would have covered almost 250,000 people in the state with health care, but they currently don't have it. And a residual of not expanding Medicaid in South Carolina, some of our rural hospitals have started to close here in the state. We've had 4 of our rural hospitals that closed over the past few years. And then you see that there's certain services that you just don't have. Here in South Carolina, just 2 years ago, 14 of our 46 counties had no OBGYNs, none in those counties. And that's a huge issue. And let's not even get into the healthcare disparities that we see in many of these communities, and they tend to be Black communities and rural communities. In addition to that, we are dealing with 38% of our rural communities not having broadband. And I'm going to say that again. 38% of rural South Carolina has no access to the internet, no broadband. And some of the communities that do have broadband, it's so slow, Mark, that it's slower than what you would find in Cuba and Venezuela. And so, we got to do better, and we will do better. But in order to do so, we got to change the leadership. We got to get rid of people like Lindsey Graham, who only cares about his tea times with the president or having a fancy dinner at Trump Plaza. And he's standing in the door. He's standing in the way of progress in the state. He was the guy who said, over our dead bodies will he allow an extension of the unemployment benefit to continue to go to families who need it. We got 700,000 unemployed people in South Carolina, 700,000 people who have filed for unemployment in South Carolina. And the max that they will get on unemployment here with just the state's unemployment alone is only $324. And that's the max. So think about it. You lose your job, you lose your health care, you now have to pay your COBRA. You got 2 or 3 kids at home, your mortgage and your rent are still coming because they haven't stopped. The prices of commodities have increased. How do you make ends meet? How do you do it? And to have your senator say, over our dead bodies, will we allow an extension of the federal unemployment insurance benefit? That is crazy. But that's what we're dealing with here in South Carolina. And let's not add to the fact that because of that benefit, Mark, $120 million came into the South Carolina economy every week. So now, because they have not extended that $120 million is gone. So what happens? Those small businesses that are on the verge of closing will close. And you know who they have to give the credit to? They can give it to Lindsey Graham, their senior senator here in South Carolina.
Okay, that's deep. But I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Let me do this first. You said closings of rural hospitals, a lack of rural OBGYN, 38% without broadband. In those categories, that includes some South Carolinians too, right?
Democrats, Republicans, Black, whites, Latino. I mean, it includes everybody. And that's the sad part about this situation. Everybody suffers as a result of it. Every single person, regardless of your background, your color, your political party, and your affiliation. We need a senator who's fighting for us and not fighting against us. And right now we have one who just doesn't care about us. He only cares about his own political power and relevance. And that's the sad state right now. This guy has not done an in-person town hall in almost 3 years, Mark. 3 years. But if you flip on Fox News tonight, I guarantee you probably see him.
Yeah.
He's always on with Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
I wish he would come back and talk to his constituents as much as he talks to, or work for his constituents. We don't care if he doesn't talk to us, but at least work for us.
So obviously there are even white voters in South Carolina who are getting the numbers you just said. They understand the impact on their lives. And that's why we're at 44%, I dare say.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we are starting, Mark, to pull off some of Lindsey's big supporters. Just a few weeks ago, we announced Dick Wilkerson. This man was the former president and chairman of Michelin North America, probably one of the largest companies here in South Carolina. He was co-chair of Lindsey Graham's finance committee when he ran for president. And Dick Wilkerson came out and wrote an op-ed endorsing me in this race. He said that Jaime Harrison represents the future of the state of South Carolina. And he said, Lindsey Graham, a man who I used to support and respect, but when Lindsey did not stand up for the memory of his best friend, John McCain, against the attacks of the president, then I knew that he wouldn't stand up for me, or he would stand up for the state. And that's a whole lot to say.
You mentioned, let's go back to this $120 million in the economy. Break that down a little bit more for us, and the relationship between that and him not supporting extending unemployment benefits.
Yeah, so in essence, and you know, that's not the end of the story for small businesses who are suffering here in South Carolina. So, you know, when folks get that $600 a week in South Carolina, that it adds up to about $120 million that are going to constituents here. And they're pouring that money right back into the economy by paying their rents and mortgages and working with going to the grocery store and what have you. And so it kills small businesses. It absolutely kills it, because now that money is not coming in. So how are those people? What are those people going to do for those in order to address those issues? At the same time, Mark, South Carolina right now is ranked 50th, 50, in terms of PPP dollars allocated per worker. Meaning that, you know, despite the fact that Lindsey Graham would go and golf with the president twice over the weekend and this and that, we ain't got no more money. I'm going to say it like my folks back home. There is no more money. Nothing came out of that. And so our small businesses are suffering here in South Carolina, and they're getting a double whammy. We're not getting the PPP dollars. We also are not getting now the federal unemployment benefits that were coming into our state. And so the families are going to suffer, and the businesses are going to suffer as well.
Okay, so here's a problem with that. I don't know whether Lindsey said this, but we know Trump and other politicians and Fox News has promoted this, and Lindsey has not spoken against it. We'll just say that. This notion that some seniors, including Fox watchers, their lives were expendable to help bolster the economy. And you mean for me that this decision and Lindsey's position with regard to unemployment benefits is actually undermining the economy? So folks just been dying from COVID for nothing?
Well, Mark, let me tell you, when I heard, I believe it was the lieutenant governor in Texas, I was watching his interview, and he said that, you know what, all the money in Fort Knox ain't worth my grandma's life. And I'll say that from the mountaintop. And so, you know, we can always rebuild our economy. And America's been great at doing that. We've had hard times before, but you can't get a life back. And so, and we need to understand that, you know, I'm not going to ask our seniors to sacrifice. They've already sacrificed so much to build America the way that it is now, right? And to ask them to once again take one more sacrifice, give your life? Come on. If we did the things that we know we need to do, less social distance, let's have make it mandatory for people to wear masks, and do that for the short term, we won't have to have these long-term pains in our economy, but also in terms of the loss of life in our communities. So it just takes some real leadership right now. We should have had a national plan, but we didn't. Right. We should have had a 50-state strategy, but we didn't. We allowed the states to compete against each other for PPE. There's so much that we can do and we should do. But in order to do it, we got to have the right type of leadership. Right now, in my hometown of Orangeburg, they have erected a tent outside in the parking lot because they are running out of beds dealing with the issue of COVID, right? We are already in a state that rural hospitals have closed, so that means our hospital capacity is even less than what it was a few years ago. And now you have to deal with the rising numbers of folks dealing with COVID. You know, where's the plan? Where's the vision Where's the energy to really address this? And then Lindsey has been pushing this ball. Initially he said, "Oh, this isn't a big deal. It's just like the flu and all these other things. If we have 50,000 people who die, then that's success." And now it's up to 180,000. He keeps moving the goalposts. But at the end of the day, he isn't doing anything more so to have the leadership to really address this issue. And so that's the hard part. And now I guess the House passed the HEROES Act 2 months ago, right? In order to renew these unemployment benefits and to add more money to states and to schools and all. And we see once again under the leadership of Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, the Senate can't get its act together in order to address a major crisis in this country. And I guess this weekend they're taking the weekend off because they can't come to some compromise. Well, you know what? The American people need to give them a permanent blue slip and say, you know what? Thank you for your service. Here's your gold watch. Lindsey, you just turned 65. Enjoy your Medicare benefits. It's time for you to go, sir. And we're gonna help ease that transition for you.
But I can't help but imagine that there are even white voters in South Carolina who didn't buy into they needed to sacrifice their lives for something like this and are fed up with the way this COVID crisis has been addressed. I mean, you must be hearing that from even voters.
We are hearing it. And that one statement from Lindsey Graham, over our dead bodies will we allow an extension of this unemployment benefit. It is one that he will hear from this point until after November, because that is going to be the moment in which he lost his election, because it shows how out of touch, how callous. It was his let them eat cake moment, right? Folks are suffering. It is hard enough right now just trying to navigate all of this, worrying about your family, the seniors that are in your lives, worried about your kids in the schools, worried about your own jobs and how you're going to pay your bills. To then have your United States Senator, the person who's supposed to be working on your behalf in Washington, D.C., to in essence say, let them eat cake, right? We're not going to tolerate it. We're not going to allow that to happen. We're going to do everything we possibly can to really help alleviate the pressures that folks feel and face right now.